This is Dr. David Allen. I'm talking with my daughter, Dr. Marie Allen Carroll. She's an expert on codependency. She's written a book using my theory. She's spoken throughout the States and has developed a number of programs here in Nassau at the Renaissance Institute. And Marie, as you've studied the field a lot, what are other aspects of codependency that really strike you at this stage in our country's development?
One of the things I think it's very important, because the reason why codependency can go so unnoticed for so long is because it can get mixed up with caregiving. I'm a nice person. Shouldn't I want to help? Shouldn't I want to help the person that always asks favors for me? Shouldn't I want to help my spouse? Shouldn't I want to help my child if they're in trouble?
So what's the difference between caregiving and codependency?
And that's a really important question, right?
The difference between caregiving
and codependency. Because caregiving, of course, you have people that need your care. Codependency means you are helping so much, or you are perceiving you're helping so much. A lot of times you aren't. You're actually getting in your own way and someone else's way. But you are perceiving you're helping so much that you're actually hurting yourself. So you feel like you are helping someone else, you feel like you are controlling someone else, or thinking you're controlling someone else, but in essence you are now being controlled.
Wow. So in other words, codependency is where you actually love somebody more than you love yourself.
Yes.
And in serving somebody, you're destroying yourself.
Yes, yes. And it's tricky because I know we are taught to love other people, right? And so it's not about that. Absolutely, we need to love other people. But when you are loving someone so much that you're destroying yourself, that is not love. Because that person would recognize that if they were truly a person who deserved your love, and they would recognize that you are hurting yourself, and they would put a stop to it. Unfortunately, with the codependent dynamic, a lot of times there's a giver and a taker, and the taker will just keep taking and taking and taking, while the codependent person becomes sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And you also can tell codependency. There's a question: is codependency a disease? Well, maybe it's not a disease, but it is progressive. It can get worse. Once you've got it, you've got it. unless you're able to break through the denial and become aware of it, it's not going to just go away. And that's where you have women in abusive relationships for years and years and years, and people are like, how can you do it? Codependency can be very pervasive and very subtle.
So it's addictive then?
It's very addictive.
For example, if a woman is codependent on a man, or she's codependent on the abuse she's getting from a man, she will stay there and take that and take that and take that, and even die staying there.
Yep.
Gosh, that's scary.
Well, because part of them feels that's how they feel needed. That if they don't help this person, that they failed, that they haven't loved enough, that they haven't stuck to their marriage vows or been a good parent or what have you. Instead of seeing that this person has put you in a position that is cruel and unfair. He or she has taken away your authority, and the codependent person has to take responsibility and realize no one can take away your authority unless you allow it.
Say that again?
No one can take away your authority unless you allow it.
In other words, people don't take our authority, we give our authority away.
We give our authority.
Now, why does codependent people give their authority away?
Because they feel like that's how they're going to be loved.
Oh, I give my authority to somebody hoping they will love me.
Right.
And if they don't love me, then what happens?
Then I'm not worth anything. It goes back to the false self. Remember, we're all hurt in the area of abandonment, rejection, humiliation. If I'm not codependent, if I don't give my adequacy, I might get abandoned, I might get rejected, and I might get humiliated. So heaven forbid, I'd rather kill my soul slowly, but even sometimes physically, than risk rejection, abandonment, or humiliation.
Is that why young girls, when a love affair breaks up, they want to kill themselves?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. The pain is so deep. Wow. That they just can't tolerate it.
And that happens with men as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things we're working on with young people is to help them see this before they get into the traps. Help them develop a sense of self-worth and security. Before, again, codependency, addictions was looking at someone who had been highly traumatized. terrible child abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, parents were addicts. Yes, that's where codependency was born from. That's where a lot of psychological disorders were born from, depression, anxiety. What we're moving towards now is understanding, especially in positive psychology, in our practice, in our theory, is that everyone has been touched by some kind of harm. Even those on the outside that look like everything is together, maybe they haven't had the overly traumatic childhood, but somehow they have still been hurt. Some people have been overwatered, overprotected, over-nurtured, and they don't realize that there are cruel people, that there are people that would take advantage of them. So again, my psychological self, or where I find myself, is applying these concepts to everyone, no longer just the person that society deems as sick or ill or needs a therapist. Everyone needs a therapist.
And that's important for us to stress, because so often people see psychotherapists or psychiatrists as helping others. But the truth is, any good psychiatrist or psychotherapist must let somebody else look in their head. I've had to have my head examined. I'm sure you've had to be in therapy. You can't be a good psychotherapist or psychiatrist unless you've had yourself examined yourself, because to really work with people, it's very, very dangerous. And you can use them and you could hurt them. And the only way to stop that is to make sure somebody's looked at your heart and looked at your head, so that you wouldn't be someone who would be cruel to hurt somebody else. And in some sense, we as therapists have to keep working on ourselves so that we also break through codependency.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Marie, you work with some young adolescents in Nassau, and you're trying to help particularly young girls move away from codependency. How are the young girls taking this? Because in some sense, they love to please. Mm-hmm. They want to look right. They want the right kind of boyfriend. They want the right kind of shape. Mm-hmm. If they gain a few pounds, they feel their life is finished. So how are you helping these young girls, some of them very bright, to really not become codependent?
I would say the biggest thing is finding sense of self, really focusing on strengths, healthy relationships, communication, leadership. The stronger you are, the more in touch with who you are, your natural true self, the less likely you're going to fall into this pattern. I would also say looking at families is really important. What's going on in the parental relationship? A lot of times you see kids have developed codependent behaviors because they've seen it in their mother or in their father, or their mother's been very, very ill, maybe mentally ill or addiction, and so they've had this caregiving role their whole life, and now it's kind of twisted from caregiving into this codependent factor.
That's very interesting, Marie. In other words, parents need to recognize that the way they allow themselves to be treated in the home, they're modeling that with their children.
Yes.
If a woman lets her husband just speak to her any kind of way and controls it any kind of way, she's telling her daughter, this is how you have to be when you have a relationship. Mm-hmm. And the sad thing is that it gets implanted in the young lady's mind, and that's what she grows up becoming.
Absolutely.
If the mother tells the son, you're no good just like your father, he, in other words, starts to believe, well, I'm no good. Yep. And sure enough, later in years, he starts to act like the father acted.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to stress, family, that our children love us so much. They will mimic us. Even when they kill themselves, they write notes saying, Mom and Daddy, you were the best parents ever were. They are born really wanting to please you, and they give themselves to you, but really they imitate you. And that's why it's so important as a parent, get help for yourself. Come in and see our clinic, or do a bit of psychotherapy, or see your pastor or your priest or whatever. Work on yourself, because you're giving these kids subliminal messages of how they should be in the world. If those messages are not good, I'm sorry, those kids are going to have a real difficult time in life.
Yeah, yeah. I would say also in our family program, whether it's people that are being facilitated to be trainers in our family program or the actual members in our 26 groups around Nassau, one of the biggest themes is codependency, and it's not recognized as first as that, but so many times after they've been coming to the groups, you see this kind of epiphany or light going off. They call it scales falling off their eyes, or realizing that they've been stuck in this trap of giving, and have lost themselves. They don't know They don't know what their passions are. They don't know what their hobbies are. They don't know what their strengths are, because for so long they've been people-pleasing and doing everything for everyone else that they've kind of lost who they are.
What Marie is saying is very important, because Marie she's the chief trainer or head of the training department of our Family Institute. We have the Family People Helping People project funded by the Templeton Foundation. We have now 26 families. We're in the prison, we're in marginalized areas and throughout Nassau. We also have one beginning in Washington. Marie was in Atlanta, where one will soon be starting. Hopefully another one to start in Texas. But as Marie has done the training of the facilitators, and by the way, some of our ordinary so-called Bahamians who have not had a psychological degree, they are fantastic therapists and great facilitators. But one of the things we find is that they are surprised when they're recognized that they've been codependent all their life. One lady said once, "Oh, Dr. Allen, I will now take the scales off my eyes because I realize I have an authority card from Almighty God. I have meaning, I have dignity, I have identity and value, and I'm never going to give that away, no matter how much I fall in love. I want to be the person I want to be because that's who I am. I can only be who I am and not somebody else."
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so powerful once you realize that. And it's not easy, because sometimes, like when all denial is broken, sometimes it means that there has to be a change in your life, depending on what you found that you've been overly dependent on. And sometimes that can be really scary to break that denial and accept the awareness. That's why it's really helpful to have support, because it can be so ingrained in yourself that you don't even realize it. It can look like a lack of assertiveness. Maybe it's very hard for you to stand up for yourself. It can look like perfectionism. Maybe you feel like everything has to be perfect, and if it's not, you just become panicked. I think of it as when you've got all the pots on the stove and all of them are about to boil over and you only have one lid, and you're trying to constantly put a lid on the one, but as you put one on this one's boiling over, and then you try to put this one and this one's boiling over, and life is just unmanageable. Life has become out of control. When that is happening, take a look. There's probably something codependent happening, something you're giving too much power to in your life, and you're not stepping away and finding balance. So when you start feeling life is unmanageable, when you start feeling like you are trying to control so much that you're actually becoming out of control, I'm sure you've experienced that. You feel like you're controlling everything, and one little thing happens and everything, psh. When you feel like you just can't take it anymore, panic attacks, feeling like you are losing your integrity, you're making choices that you wouldn't normally do, you're tolerating behavior that you would never dream possible, you are tolerating things that you would never want to tell anyone else because you know they would look at you like, what? Why would you allow that? Those are all signs to you that you are losing yourself, and it doesn't just go away. I promise you, it doesn't just go away. So it can be scary, but it can be so relieving when you're able to say, you know what, my life has become unmanageable, I need help. And that's where our family program and therapy and what have you can help a lot.
You know, Marie, it's also possible to be assertive in some areas of your life, but codependent in other areas. What causes that?
Yes, you see that. You'll see someone extremely assertive on the job, very good with employees, employers, very assertive. But then they go back to their relationship and they're like a little mouse and they can't stand up. It's really, I guess, where you find what's most important to you, perhaps. If your relationship, if the idea of losing your relationship is devastating to you or very scary, you've lost some power in that. Whereas if it's a job or something where you're like, well, it's a job, but if I don't have it, then I'll find another job. It doesn't have as much power. Whatever we're giving so much power over, or power to, and in so doing losing power in ourselves, that's where the codependency lies. Whatever we're allowing control us versus we having control over, that's where codependency is, whether it's an addiction, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, whether it's money, materialist, whatever is having control over us, because we know control is an illusion, right? We have no control. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes. So just the idea of doing so many things because we think we have control is an illusion in itself. It's like a dog chasing its tail. You're just going around in circles and circles, 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 and it's just exhausting.
Oh boy, the codependent. If I please you all my life, you will love me. The sad thing is, I've tried to please you all my life, and you still don't love me. Well, the truth is, you gave him your power. Take it back, because you're a person made in the image of Almighty God. You have an authority card. You have meaning. You have dignity. You have identity. You have value. You are somebody special. We're going to take a break and be right back.